with a brief overview of Azure and what it is and what it's really about. So I'll move the slides on. Hopefully you can see the slides there. So Azure is really a collection of different kinds of cloud services. What really matters is what you can do, what you do with them, these services. They're grouped into four: compute services and network services. Those were the subject of a previous webcast. Compute services is all about virtual machines. Network services is connectivity from your on-premise to Azure, and data services and app services we're going to cover today. Now, the way Microsoft describes Azure is an open and flexible cloud platform that enables you to quickly build, deploy and manage applications across a global network of delivery centers. So what's important here is that global network of data centers. They've got those all over the world. So wherever you are, if you want to pick a data center that's near to you, it's a good thing to do to reduce that latency between yourself and the data center. If you have an application that's spread globally, then there's certain aspects of Azure that you can use to help reduce that latency. So one of the great things about Azure is the resources you can pretty much get immediately. You don't have to wait on IT to provision hardware. And we'll see some of that in the demos as we go through today. Incidentally, if anybody has any questions, if you want to put those in the text chat, or there'll be a bit of time at the end, and we'll see if we can answer some of those. So I'm going to start with data services on Azure, and these can be pretty much summarized in four categories. We've got SQL Database, or SQL Database, as some people prefer to call it. HDInsight, which is the Apache Hadoop provisioned as a service for analyzing big data in Azure, so we'll talk a bit about that. Storage, which is split into tables, blobs, and queues. A blob, in case anybody doesn't know, I think that stands for binary large object, which is really just a binary file. And recovery services, which is all about performing backups and restores from the cloud. So I'm going to start with the Azure SQL Database. And what this is it's a cloud-based relational database service from Microsoft. It provides that relational database functionality as a utility service. So what you can do is you can take your databases you might have running on SQL Server, and you can move those and run them in the cloud. The data is stored on one primary data center and two replica data centers. One of the things that is really important to understand about SQL Database is it's not it doesn't comprise all of the functionality that you get from SQL Server in the cloud. It's really just a subset of that. It's basically the relational database. And I'll show you a bit of how that works now. So some of the things, for example, that you don't get with SQL Database that you do get with SQL Server are things like master data services, data quality services, the SQL Server agent jobs, things like table partitioning isn't available in SQL Database. And the change data capture is not available. Change data capture is quite a useful thing in business intelligence scenarios where if you have a source system, you can, if you just want to do incremental updates in your data warehouse. So I'll just switch my sharing here and just show you how we provision one of these SQL databases and what we can do with it. I think I don't want to give everybody death by PowerPoint, and I think it's good to see these things in action. So let me just see if I can switch. Okay, great. Okay. So hopefully you can see my, yes, it looks like you can, browser here. And this is the management portal for Azure. So I'm clicked on all items at the moment. You can see everything that I've provisioned here. And you basically access this by going to manage.windowsazure.com. And down here, we can see there's SQL databases on the list. So what we've got a list of databases and servers that I currently have. If we want to provision a new database server, we go down here, we hit add, and we'll provide a new login name. So I'm just going to put one in here. Hopefully those are the same. Yep. And I need to pick my region. I'm just going to pick North Europe because I want it to be pretty close to me here. So if I hit the tick button there, so that's Azure's gone off now, and it's creating me a new database server. Now normally it's a pretty quick thing. Yep, there we go, my database server is up and running. So if I want to go and manage that, I can head to the dashboard here and I can click right, manage server. So I want to manage my new database server. Now my current IP address isn't included in the existing firewall rules, as you can see in this error message down here, so I'm just going to add that in so I can go ahead and manage this database. I thought I'd click yes, here we go. So we'll get in a few moments, we'll see the database management portal. Here it comes, 98%. 98%. Okay, so I'm going to log in to using my username password that I just provided. What you can do for people that are familiar with SQL Server is you can use the Enterprise Manager to manage your Azure databases. But one of the things that you can't do is use all the functionality in Enterprise Manager, such as being able to create tables, create views and stored procedures. What you have to do is you have to do those from scratch and use SQL to create those, create database and so on statements. So I'm going to go in here and create a new database in Azure. As you can see, I've got several options here. The biggest database I can get in terms of capacity is 150 gigabytes for SQL database, which is a pretty massive database. There's lots of scope for adding shed loads of data in there. So I'm going to give a name to my database. Let me just add that in there. Because I'm only using this for a demo, I'll just give it 100 meg start-off size there. Like you saw there were two editions. There's a web edition and a business edition, and the business edition is the one where you can maximize the size. So my database is created. I've got that there. I can now start performing queries. If I want to create a table in here, I can write my create table statements. So I don't know, let's add some columns in here. And just a couple of columns. Let's add a phone number as well. And I'll go ahead and run that. And great, I've added a new table in my database, and you can use this SQL database to connect to your applications. Your on-premise applications can connect to your Azure SQL database, as well as your applications that you've deployed to Azure. For example, if you deploy a web application, you could use it to connect to SQL database. The main advantage being Microsoft takes care of all the maintenance and patching. You don't need to do any of that. Obviously, if you wanted the full SQL Server functionality, then you'd have to go to Azure. You can still get that. You can go to Azure, you provision a VM and install SQL Server. You could install analysis services, master data management, all those things that I mentioned that you can't do in SQL database. You could do that in a VM, but of course you'd need to manage it all. Then you'd need to manage patching and maintenance. Okay, so I've created a table. Just for the purposes of a demo, I'm just going to insert some data into the table here. So I insert to my table, and we called it first name, phone number, and let's just put some rubbish data in here. So, and let's just run that, see what happens. So as you can see, one of the interesting things here, and this surprised me actually when I first tried this out. So tables without a clustered index are not supported in this version of SQL Server. So we've hit one of those limitations. This would be allowed in SQL Server, but SQL Database, this isn't allowed. So we'd need to add a primary key index, a clustered index on this table in order to add data to it. So tables without indexes are called heaps, and they're quite useful in business intelligence scenarios where you want to extract, load, transform data from a source. That aren't available in SQL Database, but of course we could, if we want to make this work, we just have to add an index on here. So I'll quickly do that. So we add a constraint, and we'll call it, so it's our primary key, and what are we going to call that? It's on my table. Let's give it a nice name. Let's just this is, we're going to put it on the first name column. Obviously you'd never want to put a primary key constraint on your first name, because the moment you hit another person with the same first name that you wanted to insert into this table, you're going to run into problems, because you'll invalidate your constraint there. So we want to do primary key, and we'll call that. So let's run that. That'll add the primary key, and then it'll do the insert with any luck. Great, yeah. So as you can see, it's added the row in there. So a nice little web-based console for administering your SQL database, I have to say. And as I said a few moments ago, you can use Enterprise Manager. Obviously, there's a full SDK software development kit out there for Azure, so you can connect your applications to SQL database, and you could programmatically create tables, programmatically insert, delete, update data, and so on. So that's a kind of quick whirlwind tour of SQL database. So hopefully you got a feel for what that is and what it does and what it can't do. So I'm going to just switch back to the presentation now. Okay. So next, in the storage service, we have tables, and what these are able to do is store large amounts of structured data, and what you can use these for is for serving that data in web applications, or you could use it for purely storing data if you wanted to. But the thing about tables is they call them no SQL tables, so you can't use SQL queries. You can query them, and I'll show you that, but there's no SQL querying on these tables. These tables have a massive 500 terabyte capacity, so that's the capacity of your storage account. If you've got other things in your storage account, such as you were hosting an SQL database, say, then obviously that's going to count as part of your 500 terabytes. So one of the things I've seen, just to give you an example and a feel for what tables are, one of the things I've seen somebody do is use this table service to store, I think it was a massive amount of email addresses. I think it was something like 150 million email addresses, and these if you remember back, you may have seen in the news that I think it was Adobe. There was a company that was compromised. Their customer data was compromised, and somebody got hold of the list of compromised email addresses, put them in an Azure table, and was able to quickly build a web front end to query the table, and you could put your email address in a field, hit search, and then the Azure Table service would scan through these 150 million email addresses and quickly tell you whether your email address was one of those that was compromised, if your account was compromised. So massive amounts of data, and one of the things you can't do is there's no complex joins, there's no foreign keys that you tend to get in a database. It's all about denormalized data for fast access. There's no schema for this, and it sounds like a very weird thing to kind of grasp, but I'll show you a quick demo, and we're going to get into code here. But it's C#, but I'm really hoping that it will just, you don't need to understand the code, but just to give you a good sense of what these tables are about and what they can do. So I'm going to switch back again to out of the presentation. So if you just bear with me a second. Okay. Great. So what I've got here is a little .NET console application, and what this does is it connects to my table storage. So this is using the Azure software delivery kit, and I'm creating my cloud storage account object here. So this is how I connect securely over HTTPS to my storage account that I've called Daisy here. I create a table with these few statements here, and then I can add some more data. So what I've done is I've created a new class called customer entity, and I've just in here I've added some attributes. So I've said, okay, we're going to set an email address that's a string and a phone number that's a string, and if I run this, what will happen is it'll add this person in. I've commented out this insert operation here because I've already inserted this particular record, and it'll crash if I run it, or it'll throw an exception. So I'm going to change the keys here. Now, one of the things to notice about tables, there's two things that you have to have. You have to have a partition key and something called a row key. Now, the partition key really acts like when you get a phone book, so the alphabet in a phone book, it helps you group your data to be able to do quick lookups. So thinking back to the example that I talked about a few moments ago, where somebody had uploaded all those databases, those email addresses, what they used for the partition key was the domain. So obviously, I would imagine Adobe had a lot of users at hotmail.com or at outlook.com, say, so that would have been a huge partition, and the row key was what comes prior to the @ in the email address. So this is how the data's referenced and stored in a table. So whatever you store, you have to have a partition key and a row key. Now, one of the things you could do with partitions is you can move them around in Azure. So if say certain times of the year a certain section of your data is queried more than data in other partitions, you can arrange it so that the caching, the partition that's queried the most is cached. So if I run this, let's see what happens. So I'm going to run this console application. It's going to insert this customer entity in my table with any luck. It's going to take a short while to get going. And at the end here, I've just got some code that queries the table and pulls back everybody whose surname, where the partition key, so the surname as we've used this table, is not equal to Bradley. So that seems to be crunching away. Hopefully we'll get the console appear in a moment. So just whilst that's going, there's no schema for this table. We've added these email and phone number attributes, and we're adding this customer entity object. I can the row, what as Azure Tables call it, entity in my table. It could have completely different attributes, and it could be a completely different object. So it's almost like it's a store for object data. So what this has done here, this hopefully you can see that now. This has come back, this console application. It's gone off to the table and it's queried everybody in my table that doesn't have the surname Bradley, and that data has just been dumped out to the console. So it's a pretty terse application here, but hopefully you could see this is really straightforward to hook up to a web front end and a web page. Enter data through a form. The data then gets uploaded to your Azure table. So what we can do here, actually, let's see if I can stop that. If I go to the Server Explorer, within Visual Studio that we've got open here, you've got this Server Explorer, and you can connect to your Windows Azure account. So I've got this people table that I've created in here, and I'm just going to double click that and open it up so you can see the data. So that's the data that's in my table. I can see partition key, row key, Azure add timestamp to everything that's added to the table, and these are my attributes. So what I can actually do in the interface here is add additional rows. If I wanted to add an additional row to my database, I need to give it a partition key, and a row key, and add any number of properties. We're limited in the types we can use for the table to these here. So we've got string, ints, booleans, doubles, date times, and so on. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm adding a completely new attribute to this table, kind of like adding a new column to a relational database. And as you can see, I'll just add my new value in there, and that's added to the table. So there's a whole host of third-party apps out there that will connect to your Azure tables and allow you to look at the data. If you have Excel, one of the nice things you can do with Excel, and I'll show you that now. Let me switch over to Excel. Okay. Excel's up and running, and I'm going to just open a new workbook here. One of the things you can do with Power Query is I can import data into Excel. Power Query is downloadable from it's a downloadable extension from download.microsoft.com, and you can install that as an add-in for Excel. So I want to import my data from Windows Azure Table Storage. So I've clicked on that there. So in a moment, it will ask me for my account name, and my account name is free trial. Is not free trial. Oh, it's the storage account, sorry. So my storage account was Daisy. So I put that in there. Great, so that's connected. Normally, actually, when you connect for the first time, Excel's remembered my credentials, so it asks you for your Azure account's username, and there's a special key that you need to add to enable Excel to securely connect to your tables. So I'm going to double click on my people table here, and as you can see, I've got the data in there. That looks like it needs a bit of a refresh. So that'll pull down the latest data from Azure there. Apply and close. And if I wanted to, I could filter and query that data. obviously if I'd want to do that and not want to pull in all of my data if I had a lot. So as you can see, that's now pulled down the data from Azure Tables for analysis. So what's nice about that is if you're running a website, you have customers, users entering data, storing it in your tables, and you want to have a quick look at that data and analyze that data, maybe even pull in data from other sources and do what Microsoft called a mashup, to join the data together and look at reporting. You could load it into a Power Pivot database within Excel. You can really do that easily, as I've shown you there. You can pull it in there. So Azure Tables, hopefully people have got a flavour for what those are about. It's the key thing to remember is it's not a database. It's really just about storing object data in a table and grouped by partition key and row key. So let me close that down and I'll head back to the presentation here. Okay, so that's table storage. So we'll move on. We've also got blob storage. This is really for serving images, documents, storing files that you want to distribute on the internet. You can stream video and audio from blob storage. Blob storage is used as part of the backup and recovery service. This data in your blob can be accessed anywhere on the internet through HTTP or HTTPS. That's configurable. Similarly to tables, there are a load of third-party tools out there to help you manage your blobs. We can do that through through Visual Studio out of the box. We can upload documents into your blob storage and images. And I'll show you just a quick demo of a blob that I've got set up, just to give you a sense of what this is about as well. So I'm just going to switch the presentation again. Let's go back to Internet Explorer. Where's that? Okay, great. So in here, let me just check you can all. Yes. I've got my storage accounts. Within your storage accounts, you have what are called containers. I've got this one that I've set up called Mac Container, and in here I've just uploaded one image. As with the SQL database, you've got a 500 terabyte limit currently on your storage space. Now this is an image that I've just uploaded. I can copy the URL there and try and view that in the browser. So I'll paste that in there, and we've got a 404 not found, but not to worry. I think I know why that is. So if I go back into my container configuration, one of the things you can do here, in fact, let me try, there we go, there's an down at the bottom. There's an access setting on each of your containers, and by default, as you can see there, it's private and can only be accessed by the owner. So we want to use the public blob option. So we'll change that. So hopefully it normally tells you that kind of thing takes a couple of minutes to take effect, but let's give it a go now. So hopefully, yeah, great. So as you can see there, I've uploaded this particular image into Azure, and I can now download that in my browser. I can use that in my applications, in my web applications. So that really covers what blobs are all about. It's just about sticking files out there in Azure, really. So I'll move back to the presentation again. Okay. So queue storage, this is the last component of storage that's available. It's a service for storing large numbers of messages, and really if you have applications, let's say you've got one piece of application and you want it to send this message to another piece of code. If the receiving code, it might not be ready to process that message, and in that case what you want to do is you'll want to temporarily store the message in a queue until your receiving code or your receiving application is ready to process it. So that's really what these queues are for. They're really basic things. You have a message in your queue that you can add up to 64 kilobytes, and that's just a string. You can decide on the format if you wanted to put XML in there or JSON or whatever you like in that string. You can do that. I'll just quickly show you what those look like, because I think it's always nice to see these things in action to give you a sense of it. So I'll just switch applications again. So here what you can see is a queue that I created earlier, and within this Visual Studio, and this, as you would expect, comes with a whole programming interface so that you can access the queue within your applications. You can add to the queue, you can take things off the queue. So really what we're going to do is add a message in here, and this is what you do. You wouldn't do this in reality, you do it programmatically, but you can add a text in here, and as I said, this can be anything. There's an expiry for the queue item that we can set days, hours, minutes and seconds on there. So I'm just going to add that in, and as you can see, that's now added to the queue. So another application, maybe my target application, would connect to the queue, pull that off, and look at the message that I wanted to send to it. And that's it. That's really what queues are all about. We've got some additional information on each of the messages in here, the insertion time and the expiration time, as you can see there. So in a nutshell, that's what queues are about. Let me move back to the presentation. Okay, so Azure also comes with something called HDInsight, and what this does is it makes Apache Hadoop available as a service in the cloud. Now, so this is all about processing large data sets and big data, and what HDInsight does through Apache Hadoop is it provides something that's called a MapReduce function. So MapReduce is useful in a wide range of applications if you wanted to do distributed pattern matching and sorting. It's all about looking at a process that you want to carry out that can be distributed and split up across multiple nodes to help you speed up processing. So for example, the hello world, if you like, the kind of example that everybody gives for Apache Hadoop and MapReduce is if you had a huge text to analyze and you wanted to look at every single word in that text and count the occurrences of every single word. So then using HDInsight, it's a big job if you think about it, enables you to design that MapReduce job, submit the text, submit the job to HDInsight, and then HDInsight will go away and process that and produce the results. And you can download the results in Excel through Power Query. Those are, the results will be saved in an Azure Blob, So that actual MapReduce example's out there on the Windows Azure website if you wanted to have a look at that. One of the other uses for this MapReduce job is if you're a user of Facebook or LinkedIn. One of the things it can do is it can look at all of it can analyze all of the users and the users' friends and look to see which friends they have in common. It's that kind of problem that the MapReduce job does. LinkedIn's good at that. It tells you how many steps you've got to go in your friends and your friends' friends to get to somebody else. Now, if you think the amount of processing that you'd need to do that on the fly, I wouldn't mind betting that LinkedIn calculate that in advance, overnight, maybe weekly, and use some form of MapReduce job in order to do that. It's quite a specialized area, and it's one of those things that really doesn't demo well at this level. It's really quite complex. So hopefully that just gives you a sense for what the HDInsight's about. Recovery services is one of the moving on to apps now. I know, sorry, this is still data recovery services, still considered data. We've got two types of recovery services that are available in Azure. The Hyper-V Recovery Manager Vault. This is the one that integrates with the Windows Server and System Center platforms to automate backups to the cloud. We've also got the Backup Vault that's available that enables you to back up files and data from your on-premises Windows Server system to the Azure cloud. You can do incremental backups so that only your changes to files are transferred to the cloud. So it helps ensure that we keep bandwidth consumption to a minimum, and it helps enable point-in-time recovery with multiple versions of your data. So there's also configurable data retention policies, data compression, and also data transfer throttling. So there's lots of flexibility there and efficiencies that you can implement with the recovery service. Okay, so now we're moving on to apps. Azure has a media service. This is cloud-based versions of the existing technologies from the Microsoft Media Platform. And you can integrate media services through the SDK like you can with many of the other Azure services with your existing applications. And what this does is it helps you deliver media across a lot of different platforms, as I've got there in the slides. So from Xbox to Windows PCs, Windows Phone, Mac OS, iOS, and Android. You can build workflows in there to create, manage, and distribute your media. The service bus is really a more complex version of the queuing that I just demonstrated with in the Azure queue. The Azure queue is good for one-to-one communications between application components, but it's not a good solution where you have a one-to-many scenario in communication. So in order to address this, Azure has the Windows Service Bus. So it supports both the basic queuing and publish and subscribe forms of messaging. So the publish and subscribe approach enables you to send a message on a topic and have multiple applications create subscriptions to that particular topic and pull those messages. So it's all about relay messaging. It's very similar to the Azure queue, except it just has greater complexity there for that one-to-many scenario. We have notification hubs. These provide cloud-based applications with a method of broadcasting cross-platform push notifications to large numbers of recipients. So the example of this here is if you've got a financial application and you want to automatically push updates out to a tile on a Windows phone, so the user can see the latest up-to-date financial information, then that's the kind of thing that you'd use notification hubs for. That's what you want to build into your applications. The Bistalk service, Bistalk's available as an on-premise install, and there's equivalent service in Azure if you wanted to move from on-premise to cloud. If you don't know what Bistalk is, it really provides what's called enterprise application integration capabilities. So a way of having disparate applications communicate with each other and integrate in the enterprise and also in the cloud. There's Microsoft has something called the Azure Content Delivery Network. So what this is a large distributed system of servers deployed in multiple data centers around the internet. And the goal is to be able to serve content to end users across the world with high availability and high performance, so you minimize things like latency. People may have heard of a similar service called a CAMI. So that's really what the Content Delivery Network is. It's Microsoft's answer to a CAMI. So, for example, you would, if you had a website serving text, graphics, media files, software, documents, you can distribute those documents across the world in these the Microsoft Azure Content Delivery Network. And if you had somebody browsing in Australia, they would pull their downloadable objects from the nearest data center rather than coming to one single data center that might be hosted in Europe with all the complications associated with latency of dragging that content from Europe over to Australia. Okay, Active Directory is classed as an Azure app. This was covered in an earlier webcast, so I'm just going to touch on this. So this is really the cloud-based version of the on-premise Active Directory and provides a subset of the functionality. What it does do, it also allows you to manage what are called multi-factor authentication providers. So what these do is provide an extra layer of authentication in addition to user account credentials. So it might require a user to use their phone or some other device with their password whenever they want to sign in. So it's really useful in scenarios where you want to use a stronger access control, something stronger than passwords. The Active Directory, of course, as I've got there in the grey tile, provides a single sign-on across Microsoft Online services, third-party cloud services and applications built on Windows Azure. The Marketplace is an online market for buying and selling finished software and data. This is available at datamarket.azure.com. You can go there and I would encourage you to have a browse around just to see what's available. Obviously, the great thing about this is you're buying your software from a trusted source. It's been checked through by Microsoft and made sure that that's okay for sale in the data market. Now, what you might want to do here, just to give you a flavour for what the data's about, there's a whole variety of data out there. Environmental, financial, retail, sports, demographics. What one of the uses for data, for example, is if you've ever used Microsoft Data Quality Services as part of SQL Server, and if you have a load of customers with addresses where they've entered their postcode, the postcode data is available in the Azure Marketplace. So you purchase, I believe it's a number of queries at our marketplace, so you can hook that data up, the UK postcode and address data, to the Azure Marketplace from Data Quality Services, and you can run your data, your address data through there, and it will check the postcode, it will check the address against this source data, and it will flag. You can actually give all of your data a score, and you might want to, I think it's from 0 to 1, and I think it's anything that's less than 70 is something you might, as a general rule of thumb, want to look at. Things greater than 70 tend to be quite close to the source data. So that's how the Data Quality Services works, and how you might want to use that. But there's absolutely loads of stuff out there, health data. Yeah, you should have a browse around and check that one out. Okay, as you probably saw, I had a look at I've been using the free trial of Azure. You can get a month free. It gives you $200 of Azure credits if you sign up to the trial. One of the things that's slightly disconcerting is it asks you for your credit card, even though it's a free trial. But I can assure you that you won't be billed. I've done it myself. It is a little bit unnerving to put your credit card detail in, but you won't be billed unless you activate a paid subscription. So the free trial provides full access to the platform, and you can sign up to that at windowsazure.com. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the slides. If there's any questions, feel free to add those in the text chat. I don't know if I'm just having a quick look now. Okay, I don't see any questions in there, but if anything does crop up, or anybody wants to talk to me about any aspect of the presentation that we've given today on the Azure Apps and Data, my contact details are there. I'm Matthew BR at ridgel.com. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you to everybody that's joined. Christy, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, but we'll conclude it there. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.